Thanks so much. In the interest of time, I think it's officially 5 or 10 minutes. I'm going to go a little quickly. If I've gone too quickly or people want me to elaborate later, please let me know. Couple things briefly. I got to Carleton in September 2008 to start a PhD program. Prior to that, I'd lived 10 years in Toronto working directly with homeless people, mostly as a mental health worker. And I'd written some policy papers on homelessness and affordable housing during that time. So when I got to Carleton, I approached Francis Abel, who had many years' experience in the North, doing research, and I asked if we might be able to do something together on homelessness and affordable housing in the North, and she said sure. And so then a bit of funding came through from Cernoka as of about, I guess, January, February of 2009 for our purposes. So Francis supervises me on this research. We also have an amazing community partner, Arlene Haché, who you've heard from already. She's co-investigator on the project. My best Arlene story is the first time I went up to Yellowknife to do field work. I had to meet with somebody to ask some questions, and the person wasn't all that cooperative. The next time I went back, I had Arlene with me, and this time the person was a lot more cooperative. And I learned you don't win the Order of Canada for being timid. So it's been great to have Arlene. So the focus here is Yellowknife and the Northwest Territories, homelessness and housing. Okay, so problem. No big surprise here. Lack of affordable housing, high cost of building, especially on the Arctic coast. Expiring operating agreements, that affects all Canadian jurisdictions, but it affects northern jurisdictions even more. There's actually a great paper out by Louis G. Zanassi on that, written a few years ago. And, of course, homelessness. So we got a couple of objectives here. One is to provide an overview of homelessness in Yellowknife, and we want to get broad dissemination on that product. Arlene recently put us on to an upcoming edition of a magazine called Parity. So we're submitting something later this month, me, Arlene, and Francis, about homelessness with a focus on Yellowknife. That'll be about a 2,000-word document. But hopefully, it's our hope that a policy paper on homelessness with a focus on Yellowknife will exist, possibly in book form, next year. I presented a paper at a Quebec homelessness conference about a week ago, and they're probably going to put an e-book together based on conference papers. Present-day social housing context in the Northwest Territories. So that's a paper I'm writing. It's in draft form right now for the upcoming edition of How Ottawa Spends. That's a publication that comes out of Carleton University once a year. And that will give a present-day overview of government-assisted housing in the Northwest Territories. A couple of key issues that will be focused on there. One will be expiring operating agreements and what's going on with that and why it's so significant in the Northwest Territories. And also the issue of arrears. That gets attention a lot in the Northwest Territories, especially in the home ownership sector. There was a big federal Auditor General report on that, I think February 2008. Kind of a hot issue. And then history. Francis said from the outset that we should learn our history, that I should learn my history. And I am doing a history of government-assisted housing in the Northwest Territories from about the end of the Second World War to the present. That will probably go in a journal or a book. I'll probably have a draft of that ready early in the new year. We wanted to focus on the present-day stuff first because we figured that would be of greatest help to our community collaborators and to the community in general. The disadvantage of putting the history piece at the end is that history informs the present. So my knowledge of the historical situation isn't what it will be in about a year from now. So I'm going to quickly, again, in the interest of time, quickly read out the research questions. What have been some key factors motivating the state to sponsor housing in the Northwest Territories? To what extent has the state responded to the need for housing since the end of the Second World War? What differentiates social housing in the Northwest Territories from social housing in the south of Canada? How effective has the response been? What have been some shortcomings to the response? What could the state do differently and better? When I say state, I mean government. What are some of the most visible manifestations of homelessness in Yellowknife? What are some factors that make homelessness in Yellowknife different from homelessness in other Canadian municipalities? What have been the major policy responses to homelessness in Yellowknife? To what extent have they been effective? What could be done differently and better? Methodology. So a lit review. I've been doing a lot of reading since the program began. I've done over 40 semi-structured key informant interviews. These are confidential interviews. I protect the person's. I don't attribute the interview content to an individual to keep things safe, keep people from being fired, for example. No client interviews have been done, largely to not duplicate research done by Julia Christensen from McGill, who's done a lot of interviews with people experiencing homelessness very recently. Time frame goes like this, reading from about May 2009 until this coming January. That means I'm a slow reader. I went up for the first time in August 2009. I went for 2 weeks to Yellowknife. I went back again in February this year. This time I also went to a small community. I plan to go back again in March. There's already a draft out of the How Ottawa Spends article, and our community collaborators have seen and commented on that already. Around Christmas time, I hope to have a decent first draft of a homelessness policy paper, again, hopefully that would appear in the e-book coming out of this Quebec conference on homelessness. July next year, I'm hoping to have a first draft of that historical article. Somebody told me when I'm doing the policy paper on homelessness, it's extremely important to do everything I can to release the document in Yellowknife at a community event. I've heard from many people that it isn't appreciated when researchers from southern universities release their papers in the south and the community hears about it later through the grapevine. Or even worse, when someone has a microphone put in their face and are asked to comment on a paper they haven't even seen. So that's something I'll be trying to do in March if possible. Thank you to Cernoka. This initiative would not have been possible without Cernoka. Thanks so much for all the help of the Center for Northern Families and Arlene. Special thanks to my supervisor, Francis, Arlene Hache, Stephanie Erlbacher-Fox, and Julia Christensen. And thanks for your attention.